Someone's watching.
Oh,
Okay, now it says live.
We are live. Excellent.
All right.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Apropos. If you're out there listening, Apropos is a conversation between Clojure programmers that you can join live. We're going to discuss a few Clojure news items and share our opinions on them. Then we'll jump into a REPL and code some exercises or do some demos. If you're joining us live, feel free to comment in the chat and we'll try to address the questions. So I'll quickly introduce our panel. We've got Mike. We've got Mia.
Hello.
We've got this other guy, Ray.
Hello.
And me, I'm Eric. How are you? So we have our first topic to talk about, which is CLJS main. So I'm going to ask Ray, can you talk about what CLJS main is?
No, I can't. You should ask Mike because
Mike
can talk about it. He's got more detail.
Okay, so
I can talk about CLJ and the stuff behind that, but let Mike go first. I think.
The way I would summarize it is there's always been, if you start the Clojure jar, there's always been like these extra options that you could pass to it. Like you could pass -e to evaluate a form, or you could pass the name of a file you want it to execute. And I think that's more prominent now because of the new CLJ tool. But CLJS main, for lack of a better way of summarizing it, is it's kind of like the Clojure script analog of that stuff that's always been available in Clojure. I don't know if that makes sense.
Okay, Mike, just a technical point. Can you put the REPL as the main thing? Just click on it, I think.
Click on it? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
So that now it should be anyone who's talking pops up. There.
Yeah. Yeah. For me, it's following whoever's talking. So.
Okay, because I'm looking at the live stream and it's just the REPL. Ah, there we go.
Cool.
Now it's coming up. Okay, thank you. So yeah, it's a command line way of running the Clojure script compiler. And even being able to evaluate stuff like right on the command line.
Yeah, so previously, or I guess since this hasn't been released yet, even now, to run the Clojure script compiler, you have to use, if you go down to the bottom, there's this CLJS build API. And you'd have to call it, like basically call the Clojure script or the Clojure function to run it. And the command line tool kind of surfaces all that up to the command line, so you could just drive things.
Right, so you could have done this before as like a long sequence of arguments to the Clojure main class.
You might be able to, but normally what you do is you would run a Clojure program to drive it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Right.
Yeah. So now if you just want to run a Clojure script file, you can pass that to that command line tool, and it'll run it.
So is this a bit like what people did with line figwheel or when they were running line CLJS build or that kind of thing? Those programs called that subprogram to run the compiler?
Yeah, at the bottom they do. Yeah, so all those higher level things ultimately call the lower level CLJS build API.
Was there a lot of work to get the CLJS main to run right on the command line like that?
I think so. I know David Nolan worked on it for I want to say like a week or so before he got things kind of cooking and working. There's things you have to do to make it compile things internally. You had to like set up the output directory, various technical things. So I think it was like a decent amount of work to get it going.
Yeah, from what I understand, so he actually announced this he announced CLJS main at Clojure Sync, and so I asked him about it, and there was a lot of questions about like, is this replacing Figwheel and stuff like that?
Yeah.
And because it has a watch command, you can do -w and it'll watch your source directory and reload those changed files, but he says it doesn't actually do that. It doesn't replace Figwheel.
Yeah, like Watch will
Because-
just kind of recompile things, but it won't load it into the browser for you. Maybe
Right,
that's the
and it
difference,
doesn't
yeah.
reload the things that depend on the files. Like it doesn't keep that
Okay.
dependency graph in memory and figure out who needs to be reloaded. So Figwheel is still important in terms of like tooling. They haven't like killed it or anything.
Yeah, and outside of like browsers, if you just wanted to run like a node program, this makes it easier to, you can fire up different REPL environments and have it run things in Node or Nashorn. If you want to run, say, like unit tests that don't depend on the browser, you could just fire them up that way.
Well,
It just makes it so much easier just to kick them off. Yeah.
Right, you don't need an external tool.
Yeah. And also, if you want like a ClojureScript REPL to try something in, it also makes it real easy just to fire one up. And if you don't pass any arguments to it, it'll actually launch a browser for you and connect it. So it's kind of like turnkey. It'll makes it really easy to if you're like, how does this form behave in ClojureScript? You can just run that command and it'll pop open a browser and connect, and you're in a REPL just like that.
And so the REPL is still in the terminal, but you're going through the browser.
Yep, exactly. You got it.
Oh,
So
Nice.
any opinions on this? Like, how could we use this? Like, does this like bring up any kind of like good ideas?
I think one thing is like if you're trying to get into ClojureScript for the first time, there's this set of hurdles you have to get over to get an environment up and running. And this tool just makes it easy to just say, here I'm in a something. I've started up a REPL or I've started up a browser. So it cuts down on the steps you need to do to get things going.
Mm-hmm.
So it's good for the newcomer experience. Apart from that, I think, like I mentioned, running tests. If you have to run headless tests, it might be good for your CI environment. If you want to just run things through command line tools, I guess today you can run all that using a program, but this makes it easier to just kind of set up a command line to do it for you, if you will.
So, Mike, I'm looking at a tweet that you did where you use CLJS main to connect to an iOS app running ClojureScript. And do you think this is going to make iOS development for ClojureScript or ClojureScript development for iOS easier?
So you're talking about Ambly.
Yeah.
I don't think this will make it any easier than it is today. But it is kind of cool. You can layer these REPLs on top of each other and hook them together. I think that's kind of cool how, it comes with a set of REPL environments, but you can specify other ones that are not built into the built-in ones and hook those in as well.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. It also makes it real easy. There's like a cool technical trick where you can tell it to run things based on gists. So you could just, run a command line and set up the deps pointing to some gist out there, and it'll download all the code, compile it, perhaps even pop open a browser and start running something for you.
Where are the actual docs for this? Can we post them in the chat? I think people would like to see them.
The docs are actually being written right now. They're still, because it hasn't even been released yet. But if you ever there's a help thing that you can do. You could pass -H to it when you start it, and it'll give you all the options that you could pass to it.
Oh.
And if you do that, you'll see that it's a lot like the Clojure. It's a lot like the CLJ tool, for lack of a better way of putting it. It's like the ClojureScript analog of the Clojure tool.
That's really exciting.
You mentioned something, Mike, earlier on when we were talking about it before, that you can pass it a SHA.
Yeah, so that's part of the CLJ tool, the ability to set up dependencies based on either jars or GitHub SHA. Yeah.
Let's move on to that one a little, how they'll react a little bit. Yeah. How they interact a little bit.
Yeah, so that's our other topic, is the Clojure command line interface that was released with 1.9. And basically, the way I understand it, I haven't really had a chance to use it very much, but it's a like a command line script that sets up your arguments for you that normally, before you would have to do like Java and set up a class path with including the Clojure jar and whatever other jars you needed, and then call clojure.main, which is your main class, and then add in whatever parameters to that you needed. And so your command line would get really long, and there were some issues like building up that class path is not easy. So you have to manage the dependencies all by yourself. And so this tool builds in the dependency management and then constructing the class path and handling a number of arguments, like you can watch the files and have them reload and stuff like that. Is that a fair summary?
I think so. One thing I would add to it is it makes it real easy to get Clojure, because if you use Homebrew on a Mac, now you just do brew install Clojure, and now this tool is there, right? Where previously you'd have to go download that jar, and like you described, you'd have to pass it to Java, and right. This tool, I guess, because it's available through Homebrew, that kind of reduces friction a little bit.
Sure. So does it depend on Java? Like if you don't have Java on your Mac, let's say, you haven't installed it yet, you just open your Mac from the store, you install brew because it doesn't come on it, but then you do brew install Clojure. That's
a good question. Yeah.
Does it install Java for you? Is it truly a one command install?
When you install Java through Brew, it's uses a cask to do that.
Okay.
Which I think, I'm just guessing, I'm speculating. I think that makes it a slightly different dependency, and perhaps it says, "Hey, you don't have Java." I don't know.
Right. I know the Mac does have a weird thing where if you try to call Java, it'll say like, "Hey, do you want to install Java?" and send you to a web page or something. So maybe it does that. The reason I ask is some people have asked, like, what if you don't have Java installed?
Yeah.
No, I've always had Java installed. This is an old machine. I haven't had to deal with that in a while.
Yeah, because I think Apple by default doesn't ship with Java anymore, does it?
Right.
Because they decided, it was too buggy.
Yeah.
So part of this tool, I don't know if you mentioned it, Eric, is you set up a deps.edn file. And that basically is a file that has a list of your dependencies and where they're from, like Maven, basically. You can basically say that you depend on some library and the Maven coordinates for it. And it'll take care of downloading that stuff from Clojars or Maven Central. So that's how it, like Eric said, is how it forms the class path. It basically gets those things for you and puts them together.
And so it looks in a couple of places, right? It looks in the current directory, and then you can have a deps file, like a dot file somewhere.
Yeah, like I think it's a /, and somewhere in your home directory. So you can that's cool, because you can set up like aliases in there that you can use to basically say, whenever I specify this alias, load criterion, for example, like a library that you wouldn't normally use all the time, but for performance testing, you want to pull it in dynamically.
That's cool. And so like maybe you could like do some kind of I'm thinking of like Rebel readline, the new thing, the new project. You could have that come up automatically, like no matter where you are, because it's in your dot file.
Yes, you can. You can even put that. Yeah, you can say, I want this dependency to always be available. So you can add extra deps in your ~home Clojure deps.edn file, and then they'll just always be there for you.
Yeah, that's kind of scary too, though.
Yeah. So to address the scariness of that, there's a -s repro option you can pass to it. To basically turn that off, so that you can say, this thing's not working on my box. What's different? And if you pass that flag, it basically says, don't use anything except for the local deps.edn file. Yeah, I agree though. I've only been using the one in the home directory for aliases.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The other day I was talking to someone, and he was really excited about it. You know, I guess we've all gotten used to line again, so at some level we're all like, but like we're done. Like we've been using line again, we're fine. We don't need any other
Why
tooling.
another tool? Yeah.
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 But he was very excited about it because Leiningen does the trampoline thing, right? And it'll start 2 JVMs really, so it takes twice as long. And unless you specify the trampoline, and then it uses the same one, but it's not default. And then it just is a cleaner way to start stuff. So if you want to run something on the command line, like tests, for instance, in your continuous integration server, like it's a much better way to do that. I still don't see that it's going to replace Leiningen for me, though. In most cases, I still want the plugins that Leiningen has.
Yeah.
I wonder though if it couldn't just be ported one by one into just something you could run on the command line and turn into an alias.
Isn't it like the other way around though? Don't you think that Leiningen will end up just using CLJ?
The deps file?
Yeah, I think that's probably the way it's going to go, because why would the Leiningen people kind of keep on maintaining something which is already maintained by the Clojure core team?
Well, then what would the role of Leiningen be? Because if you're running plugins, or they give you commands, and those could be commands that just become aliases in your deps file.
If you're asking me whether kind of they've Sherlocked the Leiningen, then I guess maybe,
One thing you can do with Leiningen is you can deploy jars to Clojures.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think the deps tool is ever going to do that.
No, but
that's
just another program to run.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
And so
it does raise this question.
I think this wasn't the question that was basically raised when the people like Alan Dipert and those guys made Boot. That basically said that there's a problem with Leiningen is that it's great that it's got all this acceptance and people just go there and use it, but the problem is that you can't program it directly. You have to go via these plugins. You can't just make it part of your own project. And you can't then just use a natural composing mechanism that you would have in Clojure. You have to do these plugins, and sometimes these plugins don't play well together.
Yeah. We've been having a lot of trouble, not a lot of trouble, but just trying to fix our build system. We're using line modules right now because we're trying this mono repo thing. We've got a mono repo with multiple projects that have multiple projects.clj. And it's just really hard to configure, and it's hard to keep them up to date with each other. We're using Git checkouts, and there's a lot of extra pieces to the point where Leiningen doesn't seem to be doing what we needed to do, or line modules isn't doing what we needed to do. I'd be interested to see if this could be a way for us to configure a mono repo better, but it's so much work to scrap your build system.
Well, people, I totally agree. I think that for most cases, like Leiningen is fine, but then there are these cases where you want to do something like simple, like I want to do these 3 things in a row. And then it's like you have to configure a whole plugin just to get those things to work the way you expect them, when they should be like a 3-line file. And the idea behind Boot is that you have these 3 tasks that you need to run, and you just say the task you want to run. My experience, though, has been the same. Like, well, actually, this task is 17 other tasks, and they're in the wrong order for me. And so I have to go in and figure out how each of the tasks works and and like there's a bug in one of them, and so I haven't found that boot has actually solved that problem for me.
There's one thing that Mia mentioned, which is the checkouts thing. And that's another cool feature of the CLJ tool, is that if you have a project and you want to say, normally it depends on this jar, but instead for just right now, I just want it to depend on maybe a checked out source tree that I have of that library. Maybe I'm fixing a bug in that other library. You can just reconfigure it to point to a local route. Basically give it a file system path. Or if there's a fix in something in GitHub and that they've provided a patch, but they haven't released it yet, you can say depend on this SHA, and it'll clone the repo for you and set up your class path to point right at that. So it's a lot like checkouts in that sense, where you can depend on other things, and you can imagine this dependency graph of either pointing to things on your disk or GitHub or jars. And
that's actually pretty cool. Like, I know a lot of people, I've talked to people who are afraid of that GitHub is not a great place for like dependency management because things change. But the thing is, the SHA doesn't change. Like once you've done a commit and it gets pushed up to GitHub, that's going to be there forever. I mean, as long as GitHub is up.
I wonder if you can force push and hurt things that way. But I don't know. Or
like,
is it always there?
Like blow it away?
Let's say you commit something and then, like when you force push with Git, can you basically remove old SHAs? I don't know. And a lot of repos now let you protect them, so you can't do that. You could put a little flag on in GitHub and basically says, don't let you force push to the master branch, for example.
Yeah, but I think getting rid of like an old SHA, I mean, I think the notion that we can have this system that can build against anything forever, I mean, would be really nice to have these completely permalink things, but I think it's probably a bit dreamy to have that. Most of the time when you build, you'll be building and making a copy yourself locally, and then you'll be running against that. Otherwise, if you're actually actively developing something, you will be tracking the repo, I guess. But what's interesting to me is that, like you say, you can actually, you don't have to go away and yourself kind of build all this code. You can just point to some live code, like JavaScript has been able to do for ages.
Yeah.
Just get that code and run against it,
right.
which is very Lispy. That's the kind of build system to me that is much more in line and kind of in rhythm with the soul of the language. To get poetical,
there is like you can use core async right now as a Git dep, and you couldn't previously because it had a build step. It was building Java and compiling it down to class files, and they realized that part wasn't being used, so they just got rid of it. So now you can just
rid of the whole Java thing.
The Java stuff they were like Java files that weren't being used by anything else within core async, so they just deleted them.
Cool.
And that means it's like Eric or like Ray was saying, you could just do the Lispy thing and depend on the code itself.
Yeah, I think it's cool. Like I do want to emphasize, it is not like we are tracking master. So every time I do it, fetch dependencies, it's cloning the repo fresh, like a new thing that could be different. And so your friend tries to do it a day later and everything's broken. Right. It's the SHA, so it's not changing. It is a specific commit. And then the other thing is, because of the way GitHub gists work, is they are actually checked into a Git repo. So you can depend on a gist. So someone could just have like a small thing, a small snippet, not worth creating a whole GitHub repo for. And you could just depend on that, which is, I think, pretty cool.
I know that they would like to make the CLJ tool itself understand project CLJ files. So if you depend on something that is not converted over to dep study Dan,
interesting,
you would just parse that. And I think Alex Miller said that you could easily do it in a bad way, but it would be hard to do it correctly.
Okay.
So they're not. So they're kind of, I guess, hesitant to rush into building that capability.
Right.
I have
So
no clue what
we're
that means for boot. Yeah.
so we're right on time now at 2:30. My time is at the half-hour point. So should we jump into some code? We could even demo this.
Yes, I
That
think
would
so.
be really cool. Yeah.
So
Just before we do that, I noticed there's a few things coming from the live stream actually. So one thing is, let's have a look. They talk about this stuff that we're talking about. One question is, can we use any Git remote, not just GitHub? I thought that initially it was just GitHub they were targeting.
No, I think it's any Git remote that you have access.
Just any Git remote. Okay, cool. Yeah.
Right. It's not like the GitHub address. It's the Git remote that GitHub gives you.
Oh, it's just a Git protocol, in fact. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Sweet. I think that's probably the major question from the stream at the moment. Let's go to the demo.
Maybe we can do it in a demo.
Oh,
Ooh.
yeah.
We can figure it out.
So
Dangerous.
Yeah.
I've clicked on the REPL thing, so that should be showing up in the live stream.
There, I see it.
Okay. So did we want to try CLJS main and this, or the CLJ tool? Which one do we want to dig into?
CLJ first.
Okay.
If that's
See if we can do this.
So just while Mike does this, what we're looking at is a shared terminal that we're all tmuxed into. So all the panelists can join in here and type, but we're letting Mike drive right now.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. So if you have things that we could perhaps dig into, we can try them. But I just did the help command, and of course it scrolled off the top. But so one thing immediately you could do with this tool is, if you want to, the simplest thing I think you can do is start a REPL. You just type that CLJ by itself, and you're in a REPL, right? And it's pretty fast. That's I think the minimal thing that you can do is fire up a REPL. I'm going to do Control D to get out. Then you could, I guess, in the next level up in complexity, you could evaluate a form. You can pass the form directly to -e. And that will evaluate it and print the result of that evaluation without starting a REPL. So that's perhaps the next level up that I think you could do. You can use it to run a Clojure file. Let's try that. A very small Clojure file. It's just going to print keyword. So now what I should be able to do is in that file. Yeah.
Nice.
So that's running a file. The next thing in my mind is, what if you wanted to run something that was in a namespace? So I'm going to, let's see, I think I have a source directory here. I'll make one then. I'm going to make a source directory and a foo directory. Core.clj, right? And what I want to do is I'm going to give this a -mean. The arguments, I don't know what else to do. For demo. So now what we should be able to do is CLJ -m for that main. You want to run the main, and I should be able to pass in the name of that namespace.
So it's automatically looking in SRC?
Yes, good point. Yeah. If you happen to have your source somewhere else, that's where deps.edn could come into play. Deps will let you specify the source paths to look into, essentially. I guess we could demo deps.edn because we haven't I think I have one sitting there. There's ClojureScript as a dep sitting there. So given that, I should be able to use ClojureScript.
Oh, nice.
I could actually mix in our other topic. Do this, and I want to say,
It's Clojure, so we should compose, you know.
yeah. So previously I did, I told it to run foo-core's main, right? This is what CLJS main. Uh-oh.
Yay.
Now I wonder if I can scroll back.
Oh,
See? No.
I think you can. There is a tmux thing to scroll back, but
if only the stack traces were shorter.
Oh, no.
for another discussion now.
Maybe you need to say, yeah, -H or
Something, yeah.
Okay.
Okay, that worked.
So it's probably complaining that you didn't have any arguments.
Yeah, let me try to run a REPL then. Oh, you know what that is? Here's the explanation of that. When you run that by default, it wants to start a browser, and it can't.
Oh, and you're in tmux.
Yeah, so I can fix that by saying, don't run a browser, run Node. So now I'm kind of mixing our other topic, I guess. I'm saying, hey, use Node as my REPL environment instead of browser, which is the default.
Wait, so for everyone, this is the R means REPL and the E means environment. Is that right?
There is a -R by itself that means REPL.
Right.
This
I'm
RE
pretty sure
together
that
is a
means-
single option. It's not like two together, but to me, it just means REPL environment.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
So this should start up a node-based REPL. And what we're really trying to do is demo deps.edn, right? So it's actually using that ClojureScript dep. So let's go back to that subject of deps.edn. What if I wanted to, so this is depending on a released version of ClojureScript. What if instead I want to depend on the SHA? We can demo that real quick. Yeah, I know. Do you think I could do it?
Do it, come on.
Okay, so all you have to do,
This is mind blowing.
I will comment out this
Just to
form.
be clear, also, you need to include this ClojureScript dep to get the CLJS main.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
So what I'm going to do is, okay, let me put a return there so we can see this more easily. Say, hey, don't depend on a Maven version. That I don't know what you call that little bit there. I'm going to say depend on Git URL, and I'm going to get that real quick.
Can't you just type it out of your head, Mike?
Could, I guess. No,
I
I
actually believe you probably could.
No, I can't type that much stuff. Okay. So there. And then say which SHA you want. And I'm going to, what I'm doing right now is I'm going into GitHub. You can't see me doing this, but I'm grabbing the latest commit SHA. So this is dangerous. I don't know what's been committed. We'll find out.
Unreleased.
Unreleased code, yeah. So do I have all the closing braces correct right now? I think so. Now, if I do the same exact command, well, let me try to prove this to you that it's going to use that. There's a thing that shows you the class path. You do -s path. It won't run anything, but it'll show you the class path that it built. This is likely to be huge. I wonder if we can see. Okay, you see it's checking out. I don't know if you saw that it flashed back. Sorry, go ahead.
Pipe it to more.
There.
Oh, okay. So you can see that answers Eric's question right there. That source is the very first thing.
Mm.
And I don't know if you can see me highlighting in the.
Animal
Yeah, you can see the shot
signifier
there. The Clojure
Okay,
script.
So basically, what you're seeing in there is that it's basically depending on this path, which is
M2.
it's the path to where actually in this case it's like .gitlabs. It's not even, well, yeah, there's other M2 things in there, but this one I don't even. Can you see the highlighted bit?
No,
you
but I
can't.
see it about 2/3 of the way down. There's home, apropos.gitlibs,
Exactly,
libs,
yeah.
org, closure script, then a long SHA, resources.
Yeah, so that's basically, I'm just trying to prove to you that it's using a git dep, because if I run the same command again, it should work, but I doubt it'll do anything different. Oh, one thing it will do, since we're now depending on ClojureScript as a git dep, we don't have a version for it, right? Normally, if you evaluate the earmuff ClojureScript version dynamic var, you would see which version of ClojureScript you're in. In this case, we should get back nil because we're using an unversioned version of ClojureScript.
Well, that's cool.
Yeah, it's not that dynamic var gets set during the build. Yeah, I'm just trying to think of something that I could show you that would prove to you that it's using a git dep instead.
Yeah.
And I guess also maybe other evidence that it's using a git dep is that it took so long to start up. Previously, I told it
That's not a great evidence, unfortunately.
Is that just the first time?
It's partly the first time kind of thing. She came back with no.
Oh, nice.
But
Oh, wow.
yeah. I know. Are you impressed?
It's the phantom version.
The reason it's
for the
running. The reason it's running so much slower now is previously it was using an AOT compiled jar. So a lot of that stuff, and this is perhaps a slow Linux box in the cloud. So it, with the AOT compiled jar, you can get it to start up in maybe 2 or 3 seconds. Not so fast, but it's reasonable. But if you use a git dep, then you're looking at more like say 7 or 8 seconds. And I guess
So is that what?
Go ahead.
Is that what the classifier AOT means?
Yeah. So if you if you basically look at the M2 dependency for ClojureScript in this particular case, it would be like M2 repo and then org ClojureScript all the way down to the jar, right? And if you looked, you would see like what you would expect, the normal jar, but if you put classifier AOT, there's another jar sitting there right next to the regular jar that has -AOT at the end of its name. And it's basically just a variant, I guess.
Wow. So I've never done that in my Leiningen dependencies. So have I been using the wrong jar this whole time?
Yeah, you've probably been losing like 5 seconds of your life each time that you could regain.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh man, we need to tweet this one because this is, I've never used it either actually.
So what it's doing to explain is when you start up without that, it has to compile the Clojure. Clojure has to compile the ClojureScript compiler, the ClojureScript analyzer, all the source that basically makes ClojureScript work. It has to do that on the fly dynamically.
So is this just like a -AOT in the name of the jar file?
Yeah.
So like could you put it in that Maven version string? Just put like -AOT right in there?
It's a Maven thing, the classifier. When you're publishing artifacts on Maven, you need it. You can specify a classifier. So it's like a different compile target.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm going to show Eric the answer to his question rather than trying to say it verbally. Whoops. There you go.
Yeah.
So you see like there's a regular one and here's jar, what is it, TVF. You want to peek inside there? You should only see source files in here. Okay. And if I
Right,
put
class
dash
files.
AOT, yeah, exactly. You'll see a bunch of class files. Yeah, there you go.
Huh. Look at that.
Yeah, because when people say to me, you want to speed up your ClojureScript compilations, you always say, okay, well, let's remove the advanced compilation. And it helps a little bit, but I think this would help also.
Yeah. So one idea, and I think Alex Miller has been debating this or thinking about it. If you think about the way ClojureScript works, it effectively compiles things down to JavaScript and other artifacts, and it puts those in a cache directory. And effectively, the way ClojureScript really works when you're targeting the browser, it's really all just an AOT thing. You're compiling everything up front so that you could deliver it all to the browser in the end. So having said all that, there's nothing that would stop Clojure from doing the same thing. Like it could cache its class files that it produces. And
So, but I'm still on this AOT thing in Leiningen. Is there a way to even do that? To put the AOT classifier? All I'm aware of in Leiningen is that you have this vector and you put the artifact name and then the version string, and then there's a couple of options like exclusions and stuff. But is there a way to put a classifier in there as an option?
I think so. I don't.
So, I mean, yeah, okay, maybe you don't know. Maybe someone does know, but you could do classifier AOT and like everybody's life will be better.
If you can somehow figure out how to tell Leiningen to use that jar.
I've used many ClojureScript templates and I've never seen that.
But Leiningen has classifiers for sure, yeah. Because it's a Maven feature.
Yeah, so like everyone who's listening, get your favorite ClojureScript templates to add the AOT thing in. There's no reason not to.
I'm trying to unwind my mental stack to think where we left, what we were demoing, and what would be the next natural thing to talk about.
We do have those exercises.
We were talking about, before we just finish that, because we were talking, this has all been on CLJ, if I'm not wrong. I think we would say we would do something with CLJS, but I guess that's difficult with the TMUX. But you can still do it with Node, can't you?
So okay, here's a quick demo of that, which will kind of.
I think we were talking before, Mike, about.
So.
Sorry, you talk.
So
we've got in the comments that you can use classifier in line projects. I think Hyperion is the line maintainer.
Awesome.
Yeah, cool. Awesome. Well, I hope everyone learned something. I certainly did.
You will save 5 seconds every time or whatever, depending on the speed of your box. Yeah.
Yeah, every time I run Figwheel, like it takes forever.
So let's see. So I had done Core previously. Yeah. What did I have that doing before? Oh, I had it printing the arguments, right? Yeah. Okay. Right. So
can you save that as CLJS?
Yes. I'm gonna actually go to CLJC.
Ooh. But then how does it know which one to run?
That's a good question. So if you say run a particular namespace and you tell Clojure to do that, it will try to find the CLJ file first and then fall back to CLJC.
Okay.
And ClojureScript does something similar. It tries the CLJS first and then falls back to CLJC.
Okay.
So all I'm going to do is move this file to a new name. Okay, so this should still work. Let me go back to the previous command, and we give it some arguments, right?
So that's Clojure running.
Yes. Now, if I want to demo ClojureScript doing the exact same thing, I have to tell it to use CLJS main, and the remaining stuff stays the same. This is going to fail because of the browser thing. Let me tell it to use a different environment. I want to tell it to use Node.
Okay, but you're doing REPL.
Yeah. It's kind of weird, right? You would expect maybe a target node. I could try target node as well.
I think there's an E. Let me pull it up.
So this, I think what it's doing right now is it's compiling that source file. And there you get the same answer. So that's the whole point, really, in a nutshell, is that this is the ClojureScript analog of the Clojure tool that's been there all along. I mean, it can do other things as well. You can pass in -c to compile a file. So if I want to say, let's take this namespace foo core and compile it, target node, and tell it, instead of to run the namespace, I'm going to say, hey, compile that for me, right? And I'm going to additionally say, put it, and I'm going to say, put the output in main.js, and this should compile it. Previously, to do something like this, you would have to write a Clojure program that would call the CLJS build API. This is what's really cool, is you can just say, hey, I want to do it right here on the command line. I want to say, do all this stuff for me, compile it. And what it's doing is it's creating an out directory that has all the compiled stuff. And ultimately, when this completes, we should be able to run that file using Node.
Do you know if by default it takes the advanced compilation options, or does it take the none?
Yeah,
for the
by default,
optimizations?
Right now it's doing none.
Right.
So I think we can do this. I don't know about the command line arguments. Let me make it do something that doesn't depend on command line arguments, because essentially, if you are running Node directly, Node has its own notion of how to access the command line arguments.
So you have to do interrupt.
That's not part of the target.
It has to be interrupt, I think, for.
I think if I want to try,
Node.
I think you can do this. Unfortunately, it's a different way, but it's basically saying, hey, grab the arguments from Node. So I'm going to tell it to compile it again. And Ray, you had asked about...
While we're waiting, go on, sorry. Yeah.
You had asked about advanced. If this works, then I'll run the same thing again, and I'll show you how to make it do an advanced build as well.
Okay. Then the other thing maybe is, does this also have a -e to evaluate the a form?
Yes, it does. Yeah. I don't know why that didn't work. Okay, so let me before we go on, let me just make it print something.
Yeah.
Too
It's probably
much
nil or
JavaScript.
something.
Oh, you know what? There is no such thing as main. That's the problem. It doesn't know to call main. I'm still learning this stuff too. So
There's an option for main that's probably not default.
I'm just going to dispense with it and make it evaluate that form in the end anyway, and just when it runs that code.
Run everything,
Yeah.
Which I think is the default for JavaScript. It just runs everything top to bottom. So there's no, you make your own main name up basically, don't you?
Yeah, but there is a compiler option called main that you can tell it.
Okay, I give up. I'm going to just make it print a keyword. Hello.
That's portable. It's portable,
And then I'll show you how to.
Your parens.
Oh, thank you, Eric. Yeah. Yeah, that would not be good, right? This should work, right? I mean, it's just going to print a keyword.
Yeah.
The perils of live coding.
Yeah.
And remember, we're also recompiling the ClojureScript compiler each time. Because we're still on that SHA.
At least we're not downloading it every time.
Hey, look.
Yay!
Yay! I
So-
see it.
Yay for
So,
Mike. You can print
and-
keywords, yeah.
So this was none optimizations, which is like a simple JavaScript file that depends on other files. But if to answer Ray's question, you can slap in a -O advanced.
Ah, okay.
Oh.
Long time, right? But this should it should produce a nice small JavaScript file that's self-contained that would run anywhere. Well, it's targeting Node.
What does that mean, targeting?
What does that
I've
mean?
never used that option.
So you can kind of see how, like, in that stuff that's in the terminal window there, you see how it's requiring source math support. That the fact that you can even call require is a Node thing. So if you target the browser, you'll end up with different stuff in there, and
Right.
yeah.
But you can also, can't you target, like you said, Nashorn, you can also target JavaScript core on the Mac, like you do with Plank.
Yeah, I think so. For things like JavaScript core, it's just kind of like you can say none. You can say target none, which just produces plain stuff and doesn't put any of these things that depend on that target environment, if you will. But if I show you this, if I do more, it'll be a mess, right? It's advanced compiled stuff. And there's like, yeah. But anyway, it's one big file, and we should be able to run that thing.
Well, it worked, yeah.
Oh, and fast. Okay.
Is it fast? Yeah. Should be, yeah. So,
Cool.
so that kind of, I guess, shows you that the CLJS main is the same thing as the Clojure main. One other thing I could show you is that if you have the jar, what they call the Uber jar, I have that sitting there right there, a CLJS jar. You can run things. So previously we were using CLJ to run things, right? You could just do the plain Java -jar or cp cljs.jar. This is the normal way you would run it. If you didn't want to use, if you're on Windows, for example, you have to do it this way because the CLJ tool doesn't exist yet for Windows. So you have to get the CLJS jar and run things directly this way. And of course you have to wait. But
So we have a couple of questions from Robert. One is anyone working on a test runner? Do we know about a test runner for this?
But it's not even out properly yet, so
Right. That's true.
maybe not quite yet,
you can do.
And then his other question is this going to replace Plank?
Oh, it kind of can in some use cases. Plank and Lumo are self-hosted versions of ClojureScript that have all these same command line startup arguments, and you can use Plank and Lumo to basically run ClojureScript programs. Pretty much all the stuff that we were doing now can be done with those things. So that's a valid question. Does it replace, or will it replace them? I think it can.
Does Plank and Lumo, do they do advanced compilation?
No. Well, they normally run in none mode, but you can pass in -O simple to Plank, and it'll at least do simple optimizations. So that's a good question. Like, I think that if you're just running, well, I'll show you. I'll put together a test runner real quick right now that you can use to run tests, and you can see that you can use this tool to run that stuff rather than using Plank, for example.
While you're doing that, I think Mia, you've got some kind of
urgent
urgent
job,
hard deadline, an actual work.
Yeah. So.
Well, we're going to try and do this again real soon. So, thanks very much.
Yeah, thanks everyone for watching. I don't even know how to get out of here.
Close the tab.
Just hang up.
All right, I'm closing the tab.
Bye.
Bye, y'all.
Bye.
So all I wanted to quickly show was running a test. I think one of the questions was about a test runner.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to show that you can use this as a way to run tests, which is it's a use case of this new tool. So what I did was I made
I think it's like a lot of things, isn't it? Like if you think about test runners, it's about reporting as well and all this kind of stuff, like Karma. Just being able to just evaluate tests is just the very beginning of it, isn't it? Not saying that it's not awesome, but there's more to it than just.
Yeah. So if I wanted to let's say I wanted to run these tests, what I would do is I would plonk. Is plonk on here? Yeah. I would do -I to load this file. Load it into the evaluation environment, and then I would do -E. I'm going to say run tests. So only foo core would be named foo core-test, but I'm just reusing the same namespace. And I think this will run the tests.
Oh, I think you need CLJS.
Oh, thank you. Yes.
But then I think in your file you use Clojure test too.
Yeah.
Oh, and not locate.
Well, let me try the CLJ tool. I don't know if this would behave any differently. Yeah, I apologize if this doesn't work. Oh, it's using the browser again, right? Let me tell it to use. But the intent here is that you can cobble together some command line arguments to run a test namespace. Really, that's all I'm trying to illustrate.
Yeah. Let's see. I think you gotta edit.
Maybe we'll do that one for next time.
Yeah, figure it out and show it.
Yeah, it's too much to do. Yeah.
Yeah, so we're a little.
So it's already massively impressive, I think.
Yeah, I'm really impressed. I've been having all sorts of ideas for how to use this instead of lining in for a few things.
So that's about all I have to contribute to this subject for now, I guess.
Thank you so
I don't
much.
think I have much more to say about it. Yeah.
That was really cool. I couldn't have done that.
No, that's awesome. Yeah.
So we started a bit late and now we're a bit over. So we're just at about 1 hour of recording. If there's nothing else to talk about, then I'll close out. So anything else, Mike or Ray?
No, I think this has been good.
I think it's been really good. Yeah, I think we had plans to talk through some code, but we can definitely do that next time. But yeah, it's been a fascinating. I mean, I love this way you've done, Mike, and demonstrating the tool really interactively. I mean, I think this is fantastic stuff. And I know the people on the YouTube stream have been absolutely loving it. So there's great feedback from you guys. We really appreciate you watching and taking part. Good questions and good feedback. So yeah, awesome.
And I want to say we have plans to do this regularly. So if you're watching now, subscribe and you'll get notified of when a new live stream is coming out, because the only way to ask us questions is obviously to be there during the live thing. So if you got a YouTube account, hit that subscribe button, and we'll also share it out on Twitter and stuff like that. But it's probably the most reliable way of doing it. And of course, we love feedback. So let us know what we could do better, or if you liked it, what you liked best about it. Hit that thumbs up so that other people can find this. And you can always rewatch this video. It'll be here in the same URL. Just won't be live.
Yeah.
Anything else? So we
No,
just
I think
sign off.
that's really good. Yeah, let's sign off. Yeah.
All right.
Awesome. Bye, everybody.
Bye.